A former employee at Facebook has blown the whistle on the social media giant for amplifying hate, misinformation, and division in order to push engagement and make a profit. So now this is Frances Haugen, and she was formerly assigned to the Civic Integrity Division at Facebook, which worked on reducing risks related to elections, including disinformation, misinformation, etc. So now that, of course, involves things like the big lie, which is spread through conservative media, and with Facebook being as big as it is, ended up reaching millions of people who now do not believe that Joe Biden won the election. They do not believe that he's a legitimate president, even though every state has certified the election and Congress has certified the election, and there has been no proof of voter fraud, mass voter fraud, or any of these allegations. They're just simply nonsense. Nonetheless, this is what happens when you have a bubble of media consumption that is full of conspiracy theorists. So now Haugen left in May, and when she did, had released a trove of documents last month in the Wall Street Journal. So it didn't get picked up all that much, unfortunately. At least I didn't see it, and I'm pretty sure most people on Facebook did not see it. And so she decided to come out publicly to 60 Minutes and talk about what she saw was a big problem at Facebook, and that is basically doing what all corporations do: put money over safety. So now she told 60 Minutes that the thing that I saw at Facebook over and over again was that there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook, over and over again, chose to optimize for its own interests, like making more money. Yes. I don't know, I hate to break it to you, but that's literally every single corporation ever. I mean, you want an example? ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil hid climate change research for decades from the public, even though their own internal documents said that, oh, right, we have a problem with climate change. We are contributing to climate change directly with our emissions. They still, instead of coming out publicly and saying, yes, this is true, and then vowing to, not just vowing to, but allowing regulators to go and regulate carbon emissions so that we could eventually get off fossil fuels, they instead paid think tanks and conservative politicians and Democratic politicians as well to go and muddy the waters on climate change and also to stymie or stall any sort of progress made on alternative energy. Things like solar panels and wind turbines and hydroelectric and things like that that did not involve oil, gas, or coal, so fossil fuels. And so that's one example. You also had tobacco companies, of course, that lied. Oh no, cigarettes. Tobacco does not cause cancer. Anybody who's saying that, not, incorrect. The studies do not show that. No, the studies do show that. Tobacco, massive health risk, and of course the thing about that is, just like in this situation with Facebook, here you had the tobacco companies. Anybody remember John Boehner, former Speaker of the House for the Republican side, was there for a very, very long time, and he used to hand out tobacco checks on the floor of the House to other people that have been bought off by big tobacco. So yes, this is something that all these companies do, all these corporations do. Which is why, of course, you might want to break these things up and regulate them. Now, I want to show you, by the way, some video from her testimony to Congress that happened on yesterday. Just a short little piece of that, and then we'll discuss. Take a look.
The choices being made inside of Facebook are disastrous. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
You're saying that documents exist, that at the highest level at Facebook, you had information discussing these two choices, and that people chose even though they knew that it was misinformation and hurtful and maybe even causing people lives, they continued to choose profit.
Mark Zuckerberg was directly presented with a list of, quote, soft interventions and chose to not remove downstream MSI. And in the end, the buck stops with Mark. There is no one currently holding Mark accountable but himself.
All right, so obviously she talks a little bit about Facebook. She talks about Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, of course. But here's the thing. So now she said the company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safe, but they won't make the changes because they have put their profits before people. Well, of course, this is no duh. This is no kidding. Of course, that's what corporations do. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make money, to have a return on investment for shareholders. Again, that's what they do. That is the primary function of a corporation. They're literally doing exactly what we programmed them for, and we are supposed to be surprised at the results. We are supposed to be surprised that capitalism is going to capitalism. I am not surprised. No one is surprised. In fact, this is all, again, what every single corporation in the world does. Puts profits before people, before safety, before everything. This is not a surprise. And funny enough, there were people questioning her that have actual direct financial stock incentives in Facebook. So this, let's just keep that in mind. All right. But of course, there's more. So now getting into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of how this works. In her 60 Minutes interview, she talked about the algorithms. Now, she said, the algorithm picks from thousands of options based on the kind of content you've engaged with most in the past. This is how YouTube also does its algorithms. And one of the consequences, she says, of how Facebook is picking up that content is it is optimizing for content that gets engagement or reaction. So now, doing what I do, engagement, we know, is a very important, the most important factor in whether or not, for example, my videos get sent out to a larger public. If there's more reactions, if there's more likes, if there's more comments, that's going to get this out to a bigger audience. It is going to be served up to people who have similar things in their recommendation lists. That is how the YouTube algorithm works, and I'm pretty sure it's similar to the Facebook algorithm, which does the same thing. So more reactions equals more views, and more views, more reactions, on and on and on until it spirals and snowballs. That's what happens. So now, unsurprisingly, Facebook's own research says that showing content that is hateful and divisive and polarizing is easier to inspire anger than it is to other emotions, she says. And so basically, she says, disinformation, stuff that can get a rise out of people, get people angry, get people upset, or all that stuff gets them engagement. So now she also points out that, well, we don't want to change that. Facebook doesn't want to change that, because if they do, then our view counts go down. And that's going to affect us on our bottom line. Because there's going to be less engagement with our stuff, less ads being shown, less everything, and that means we make less money. And so understand, too, that this works because we as human beings are emotional creatures. And so this is always going to appeal to us. No matter what Facebook does, no matter what the algorithm is set out, no matter who is banned, that is still human truth. We are emotional creatures, and we respond to emotional things. We respond to emotional appeals. Okay? And so she says that Facebook had realized that if they change the algorithm to be safe, people will spend less time, they'll click less ads, they'll make less money, and of course, we have a winner. Facebook doesn't care about safety, and neither do any of these social media. It's all about numbers, it's all about engagement, ads, personal information being sold to third parties, and it's not just the government, by the way, that's spying on you, it's corporations. It's corporations so they can sell you things, but also sell you, your information, your shopping habits, your history, the stuff that you like, so that they can serve it back to you and make you buy things with those targeted ads. That's what it is. That's what it is. So now, if that happens to be anti-vax content that you have interacted with, whether it be positive or negatively, you're going to see more and more anti-vax content being delivered to you, as well as conspiracy theories or things that make you angry. It's going to give you more. It is designed to do so. It's going to serve you up those kinds of videos, that kind of content. So now Hougen says Facebook understands the danger of conspiracies, especially in regards to the 2020 election. And so they did turn on some safety systems to try to reduce the amount of misinformation, but they only did so temporarily. She said this, and as soon as the election was over, they turned them back off, or they changed the setting back to where they were before to prioritize growth over safety, and that really feels like a betrayal of democracy. So, again, this is the problem here. What you have is a system where companies amplify the worst of human nature in order to make a buck. And that's it. That's the problem. So now, understand that there is a free speech component to this as well, and a free expression component, okay? So now, the thing is, nobody likes censorship, right? Nobody wants to have a platform where everybody's or different voices are censored. I get that. But I think there's something in that discussion that is being missed. And so I think everybody likes to imagine that everyone here on this platform, for example, we'll take YouTube, okay? YouTube on this platform, they think, well, every voice is equal, right? Every voice, every viewpoint is equal, and it's up to the consumer, to go and choose that, right? So now the problem with that is that we're actually not on an even platform. We're not on the equal playing field. And for example, if you have channels that do thoughtful analysis, that do fact checking, that try to give you factual information, they're not going to be as well recommended or recommended as much by those algorithms and by the engagement levels as something that is anger, as something that is false information, fake news, actual fake news that is served up because people want to hear what they want to hear, okay? And so I think the fact that we are not on an even playing field here, for example, there are channels that do a lot of excellent, thoughtful analysis, right? Now, that takes time. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of research, making sure that you get your facts correct, and of course, going into editing and things like that. That's a lot more difficult to produce, hours-wise, than it is for people who make up conspiracy theories and rant at a camera. Okay? So now, that content is very easy. It's very cheap to produce. You were able to flood the algorithms with it. And by the way, that same disinformation that is cheap and easy to produce also gets backed and supported by organizations that want to sow distrust in institutions, be it media, medicine, science, politicians, etc. So understand that there is, of course, reason for some of us to have some distrust in our institutions that are fairly corrupt at this point. All right? But the thing is, many of these concepts, these things that are being, basically that have been teaching these creators that teach our audiences to distrust these things 100% completely, also play into a right-wing narrative. For example, you've got YouTubers that are funded by the Koch brothers. You've got other YouTubers funded by the same people that fund places like PragerU. You've got shady billionaires that are pumping out this message, that are supporting these creators, like Dave Rubin, for example, to put out nonsense, to pump out this content that is basically driving people to anger, rage, hate, and getting tons of engagement and turning people over to the conservative mindset. Tim Pool is another good example. There's no thoughtful analysis from Tim Pool. Tim Pool reads an article and then claims, oh, you see, this is a proof of the upcoming civil war. Something, SJWs, radical leftists, and free speech. And the guy pumps out like 12 videos in an hour. And just like that, sits back afterwards and gets millions of views. How many videos is recording done on Brie Larson? I mean, how many have certain people done on AOC? It's nonsense. And so understand that easy, cheap, clickbaity, anger-driving content filled with disinformation is really easy and cheap to do, and that's why it is flooded. And by the way, the people that put that out are rewarded through the algorithm. And that is the business model on these platforms, on social media. That's why the entire social media system is broken. So now on that, Haugen says, it's one of these unfortunate consequences, right? No one at Facebook is malevolent, but the incentives are misaligned. Like Facebook makes more money when you consume more content, people enjoy engaging with things that elicit an emotional reaction. And the more anger they get exposed to, the more they interact and the more they consume. She added, we know we are bad for society. We know if we don't take those positions, we won't win in the marketplace of social media. Now, she also discusses Instagram and some of the effects from that on teenagers. Here's that video real quick.
Kids are saying, I am unhappy when I use Instagram and I can't stop. That if I leave, I'm afraid I'll be ostracized.
Right.
And that's so sad.
But they know that.
That's what their research shows.
All right, so on that, the numbers are pretty disastrous. One study says that 13.5% of teen girls say that Instagram makes thoughts of suicide worse. 17% of teen girls say Instagram makes their eating disorders worse. But according to Facebook's research, depression actually makes them use the app more. So they're incentivized to use this app more, even though it's making them miserable. Insane. Insane. And so at the end of the day, here we have social media companies that elevate right-wing content because it is massively funded and backed by billionaires that want to, of course, push a narrative, that narrative being deregulation, tax cuts for the rich, and will use these social issues that are divisive, like pushing misinformation about vaccines, pushing misinformation about, for example, LGBTQ plus people, et cetera, about science, climate change, et cetera. And they do that, and really it's aimed at eliciting emotional reactions, mainly anger, but then fear, you've got disgust, like, for example, the anti-immigration rhetoric. But they do so because it gets people to engage and spend more time on the platform, clicking ads and making Facebook more money. And again, this happens on YouTube. This happens everywhere else. Anywhere that there is a video platform, you're going to have this issue. And so that's the problem. Now, what's the solution? That's more difficult. Now, humans are humans, right? And I support the free expression of ideas, and I don't want to support censorship. At the same time, we got to also understand that there's no even playing field between those who honestly try to talk about real subjects and have real discussions and solve real problems, and those who riff off anger and fear and spread conspiracy theories. And so the only thing that I can think to solve the problem is to break up the companies. You break them up and you make them nonprofit entities. So if you remove that profit motive, they no longer have the incentive to push disinformation and therefore elevate disinformation, where you can actually start to challenge disinformation with real information and not have to just ban people. Because what's going on in the current system here is that you still are always going to have that profit motive based on engagement. And the most insane stuff always tends to get the most engagement. And so remove it. Break them up. Break up Facebook. End it. Break up Facebook. Break up Google. Break up Twitter. Break up all these incredibly large social media companies. And then remove that profit motive. Make them nonprofit. I don't know if that's the solution or not. I don't know if that's the perfect solution. But at least it's something that we should have on the table, and we should have a discussion about it. Because right now, what's going on is simply unsustainable when it comes to a democratic society. We have to have an informed populace that is not misled by, again, corporate media and their incentives, which include in these platforms that have their own monetary incentives. We've got to get that all out, or else we are going to lose our democracy. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.